Hey, what's up, guys? And today I want to go over Dragon Tail. Dragon Tail is a deck that came out in Justice Hunters, which is a set that just released in the OCG a couple weeks ago, and we don't have it over here quite yet. However, we're gonna get in a couple months, and I wanted to talk about the deck, show you my deck list for it at the moment, because I feel like this deck is very, very good and has a lot of potential. In the OCG, it's basically the best deck right now, so I think it's worth looking into. So, anywho, I'll get into the profile and I explain the cards, what they do. I have three Dragon Tail Lucius. Basically, what Lucius is on normal summon, it adds Dragon Tail from deck to hand, and then it has a graveyard effect, which says if it's sent to the graveyard for material as a fusion summon, you can set a Dragon Tail spell and trap from your deck to the graveyard. And all the Dragon Tail monsters have that effect. All these three and these two, they all have that effect about the set of Dragon Tail spell and trap, which is pretty nice. And then they have the secondary effect. This guy's secondary effect is during the main phase quick effect, you can fusion summon a Dragon Tail from your extra deck by using monsters from your hand or field. So these are two normal summons of Stratos and like a fusion summon effect. And 5 mana, Dragon Tail 5 mana's other effect, outside of being able to set a Dragon Tail trap, is during the main phase you can discard this card, fusion summon a Dragon Tail, or I'm sorry, fusion summon a Dragon or Spellcaster fusion monster from your extra deck, using monsters from your hand or field, so you can summon cards that are not Dragon Tails, like Dragoon, and Mysterion, the Dragon Crown, which is pretty cool. Also, it's a quick effect like Hand Trap, so it's kind of like a Hoffness, but you can like just during your opponent's turn you can discard it and then play on your opponent's turn by fusion summoning, and you can just go plus pretty much, which is nice. So the other Dragon Tail monsters, you have Dragon Tail Urgula, which says if it's sent to the graveyard as material for a fusion summon, you can set a Dragon Tail spell and trap, and then you can destroy a spell trap on the field. So that's pretty cool. And then the graveyard effect says if this card is in your graveyard, you can target a spellcaster Dragon Tail in your graveyard, so Lucius or Phimena, add it to your hand, and then if you do return this card to the bottom of the deck. And then Pan, it also sets a Dragon Tail, and then you can destroy a monster in the field as well, which is pretty good. And Pan and Urgula, they don't target. So it's non-targeting removal, which is very, very nice. So going second, if you just fusion summon, you're gonna trigger your guys, and then you can just remove your opponent's cards, which is pretty cool. And then Pan's graveyard effect, which admittedly isn't that relevant, it reads: the face-up fusion monster you control is destroyed by an opponent's card effect. While this card's in your graveyard, you place this card on the bottom of the deck. If you do special summon a non-fusion Dragon Tail monster from your graveyard, it's not doesn't come up that much, but if your opponent has some stuff, then like they remove your guys, then you can trigger it. Then Dragon Tail have a few spell and traps. They have Ketsu Dragon Tail, which is a Rhoda. Add one Dragon Tail monster from your deck to your hand. Then, if your opponent controls a monster, you can fusion summon one Dragon or Spellcaster from your extra deck. So again, unlike this guy, Ketsu does not specify you have to fusion summon a Dragon Tail. And then you have Rahu Dragon Tail, which says fusion summon one Dragon Tail fusion monster from your extra deck by using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material. So this one has to summon a Dragon Tail. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the rest of the turn except fusion monsters. So this one does lock you in the fusions. Your other cards do not lock you in the fusions, so you can do link plays or like play other engines if you want. And then for the Dragon Tail other two traps, this one's Dragon Tail Flame. Target one face-up spell in the field, negate its effects, and you can place one Dragon Tail card from your graveyard or banishment on the bottom of the deck and draw a card. So negate a spell, and then shuffle back your resource and then draw one. So basically negate a spell and draw a card, which is pretty good. Dragon Tail Horn. Target an attack fishing monster in the field, return it to the hand or extra deck. Then you can place a Dragon Tail card from your graveyard or banishment on the bottom of the deck, then draw one card. So this one's a bounce and draw one. So pretty solid disruption. And because you're drawing cards, helps you keep your hand filled for your fusion summon plays. And you can also return your banished one guy. So if something gets banished by like a Bystial, I'll bet you don't have like many Bystial targets, mainly just this one. Or like SP, you can return it and it's pretty chill. And then the Dragon Tail fusions. Dragon Tail Altharion. One dragon monster plus one or more monsters in the hand. If this card is fusion summoned, you can target monsters on the field or graveyard up to the number of monsters used from the hand, return them. So what does that mean? Basically, if you use two monsters from the hand as material, you can bounce two cards on either player's field or graveyard. If you use three, you can bounce three. If you use one, you can bounce one. And then it has a graveyard effect that says if two or more monsters are sent to the graveyard at the same time, you can special summon this card from your graveyard, but banish it when it leaves the field. So that means if you send monsters to like a link summon or a fusion summon or a synchro summon, then you can trigger this guy basically, or you or your opponent. And then Dragon Tail Grammel is one Dragon Tail monster plus one monster in the hand. You can only use one. You can only use. You can't use like three materials for this, like you can with Altharion. But Grammel says when you activate a Dragon Tail card or effect, you can target one card your opponent controls, quick effect, destroy it. And then it has the same graveyard effect as the other guy. If two or more monsters sent to the graveyard at the same time, you can special summon this card from your graveyard. So pretty cool. Even if your opponent removes the fusion, so you can summon them back. And yeah, I think it's really nice. So basically, the deck is a fusion summon deck that aiming your M board is trying to be like Altharion, both fusions plus both traps basically. And the deck has pretty good grind game, and the disruption is pretty solid, and it's really hard to stop. And I'll explain the side engine. Oh my god, Bloomberg is well, I'm not going to stop recording. I'm going to. I'll talk about this during the reconnecting stream, I guess. Anywho, thank God. I'm playing the King of the Swamp engine. This is the most common engine in the OCG at the moment, but there are other engines you can explore, which I will be making videos on at a later point in time. King of the Swamp just to search Poly, and you can also use King of the Swamp to make Dragoon, which is really good against like the Yummy deck, which is also in Justice Hunters. So anywho, I'll go ahead and I'll show you guys one basic combo for the deck, and the deck kind of, it's not like a basic like combo deck where it's like this is one card combo, this is two card combo. It's kind of a deck where you're playing with your hand, but I'll show you an example of what your turn one's supposed to look like. So this is just like your Lucius plus one any monster. So I have Molcharmy here. So you're gonna normal summon Lucius. It's gonna add a Dragon Tail monster from your deck to hand. You're gonna add Dragon Tail Fimena. Discard Dragon Tail Fimena, which, if you remember, lets us fusion summon a dragon or spellcaster. So we're going to fusion summon Altharion. Chainlink one Altharion. We use one monster from the hand, so we can bounce one card, targeting Fimena. Chainlink to Lucius. Lucius is going to set a Dragon Tail Spell and Trap from our deck. We're going to set Rahu, the Dragon Tail branded fusion, basically. We're going to add back Fimena to our hand. Rahu lets us fusion summon using monsters from the hand, deck, or field. So we're going to use this from the hand, Fimena from the hand, and Urgula from the deck to summon Dragon Tail Grammel. Now we can trigger both of these effects, so they are both used as fusion material. So we can set two spell and traps from our deck. We're going to set Dragon Tail Flame and Dragon Tail Horn. So we now have both traps. Then, if you remember, Urgula also has a graveyard effect, targeting a spellcaster. We can add this to the hand and return Urgula to the bottom of the deck. So what does this mean for our M board? So we have both of these traps as disruption, which is pretty nice, and you have Grammel, which can pop a card when we use a Dragon Tail quick effect. And we also have Fimena, which lets us fusion summon during the opponent's turn. The most common thing you're going to fusion summon as disruption is an Altharion, which basically on summon we can just bounce a bunch of cards. And it does require you to have monsters in your hand. However, you're playing like a fusion deck, so you're probably going to have other Dragon Tail monsters in your hand. And because your traps draw cards, you're going to be drawing monsters, and most of the deck is monsters, so you're going to have stuff like that, monsters to fuel your Fimena more often than not. Also, something to keep in mind is with these Dragon Tail monsters, your Pan, your Urgula, and the dragon one, the Mole, if you can get them in your hand, they have extra effects when they're used as fusion material. So I think I forgot to mention this one. It's also set to spell and trap, but then you can negate the effect of one face-up monster your opponent controls, and it doesn't target as well. And then Pan, like I said, destroys, and then Urgula is a spell and trap pop. So let's say in the opponent's turn we had like some of these in our hand, and then we would do Fimena effect, the synchro summon, or the fusion summon, sorry. Use the monsters from the field, or like whatever. Let's say we use like these three cards, right? We just had them in our hand, we open access to them, whatever. You would summon Altharion. Altharion could bounce two cards, because we use two cards as fusion material. And then Pan would set a spell and trap, and then could pop a monster. And this guy could set a spell and trap, and then could pop a negate a monster effect as well. So you get disruption that way. And the M board doesn't look that menacing, but something to keep in mind is that most hand traps are not that consistent against his deck. Yeah, sometimes they can, like an Imprimer Veiler can be pretty good, but often it's not like it consistently gets value against you. And the M board is really good versus board breakers as well, because you don't really care if they remove any of your guys from the field, because you can play with cards from your hand. We also have like a spell negate that's guaranteed as well. Disruption in the form of traps. So there's not really any board breaker that really is good versus you. So the deck is actually really, really durable. Also, something to note is that because a lot of your like Pan and Urgula and Mole don't target when they try to remove cards, it makes the deck really good at going second. For example, this deck's Yummy matchup is very, very strong. If Yummy doesn't set up a Arclight, then the deck is just really feels really, really good, which is a bonus. And then if you see, I'm also maining 6 Molcharmies, and that's because this deck can afford to play 6 Molcharmies in the main deck because you're just going to fuse away. They're just fusion fodder because you want to use any monster's fusion material. So that's pretty nice as well. And then the extra deck is just random stuff. Guardian Chimera because you can make Guardian Chimera with Poly. Magnum Reliever, you can make that. Mysterion. I'll read Mysterion if you don't know. It requires a Spellcaster and a Dragon, which this deck is all Spellcaster and Dragons. Cannot be used as fusion material. This card loses 100 attack for each of your banished cards. If a monster uses its activated effect, special summon itself, or a monster with the same original type, you can target one of those special summon monsters, banish that monster, also banish all monsters from the field with the same original type. So it's okay. And then seals, which you can make actually. And then yeah. And then Dragoon, and then super poly targets. Yeah, and then you see we have like 16 non-engine, which is a pretty solid amount, especially for a deck where its engine is really good going second. Because like this deck's engine is really good going second. Basically, because of these secondary effects to like Gaelic face-up card and pop a spell trap and pop a monster, basically either one of these spells plus any Dragontail monster can basically break through a full Razio board of like Detonator plus Cross, which doesn't sound possible, but it actually can. So the engine's insanely good at going second too. So yeah, anywho, that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed my Dragon Tail introduction, and I'll try to upload more videos about Dragon Tail in the future. Yeah.